Hello, my name is Vivian Williford. I was born in New York back in 1931. My name then was Vivian Harrison. My parents are both born here in the United States, but their parents were both immigrated from my father's side of the family from England, my mother's side of the family from Finland. Unfortunately, I never knew any of my grandparents. They were deceased before I was born. But New York was where I was born and raised. I have one brother, and my brother and I are still very, very close. I get to spend half of the year with him in Florida every winter. And I'm looking forward to doing that soon. I love Chicago, but I don't like the Chicago winter, so I'm out of here pretty soon. I spent roughly 25 years in New York, and after being married, I moved to Washington, D.C. area, Northern Virginia. Lived about 25 years there. My two sons were born in the District of Columbia. That area of the country was a wonderful place to raise my sons. I know they were happy in school there, and life was pretty good there for me. Unfortunately, my marriage just did not survive. I was married and divorced twice while living in Washington. After about 25 years in that part of the country, I moved to Florida. And Florida was a place I dreamed of all my adult life. When I first went there, it was back in 1953 on my honeymoon. I fell in love with Florida and always wanted to live there, so I finally got to live there for 25 years. Loved Florida. I was single all the time I was in Florida, had lots of adventures. I have a friend that had an airplane, taught me how to fly, and had a wonderful time living in Florida. After 25 years there, unfortunately, I got hit with a couple of hurricanes, which started my thinking about maybe it wasn't the perfect place for me to retire. So at that point, I started looking at senior housing in both the Northern Virginia, where my first son lives, and my second son here in Chicago, helped me to look at senior housing, and we came up with the St. Vincent de Paul building that I'm living in now. And so I've been here now about 7 years. So that, if you total all that up, that makes me 82 years old now. I'm very happy living here, but like I said, I pack my bags just around Christmas time and I can get out of here for the winter. Now we're going to get to the three questions that I've been asked to talk about. The first question today is, what is my fondest memory? And thinking this morning, as Christmas season is approaching, I was scanning my memory about past Christmases, and I want to go back to one when I was a child. That was a very fond memory. It was in the early 1940s. It was during World War II. My father had enlisted in the Seabees after Pearl Harbor. The Seabees was a special unit that was connected with the Navy. Most people today, because of the famous media attention they got, is the Navy SEALs. But there was another, during World War II, one of the special units was called the Seabees. The Seabees were builders. They were the people that went in. They were the service people that went in before the Marines on all the beaches. They were the builders. They were the ones that built the bridges and did anything with the building. Just before before the Navy went in, they went in to do anything with the building and preparing. After, with some of the islands, after the servicemen were there, they were there to build the hospitals and to build whatever was necessary to make the service people comfortable. They said the difficult they could do right away, the impossible took a little longer, and that was their motto. Every man in my family picked a service, and my dad picked the Seabees, and he was stationed in the Pacific area, the South Pacific, and he also in Pearl Harbor area, and Guam, and actually North and China were the places that he was during World War II. And it was, Christmas time was coming up. I guess I was maybe about 10 years old, and we were all thinking about the servicemen and making care packages and sending letters, and with the holidays coming up and my father not home or my uncles, we were still preparing for to have a holiday. And I could remember the night we were decorating the tree, and my mother had a tradition. The Finnish people never put a Christmas tree up until Christmas Eve. It's not put up like we do a month ahead of time or 2 weeks ahead of time. Christmas Eve, we always had a live tree, and I was decorating the tree. Back then we used a lot of tinsel. We used to string popcorn and cranberries and make ropes and put on, and then the precious few glass ornaments that were saved year to year went on the tree. And we had lots of decorations in the living room where we would drape ropes and put tinsel over the ropes of decorations and holly. And I'm dreaming about what Santa Claus, I'm still a big believer in Santa Claus. I'm 10 years old, but Santa was still a very important thing in my life. And at any rate, Santa brought us the biggest gift on Christmas Eve, and that was that my father surprisingly knocked on the door. And I answered the door. He actually knocked on the door. I went to the door, and I can remember the shock of seeing my dad there, not expecting him. And nobody else was in the room. My mother was in the kitchen. My brother was back in some other room playing. And my father said, shh, 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 because I was screaming, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. And he said, shh, shh, I want to surprise your mother. Where is your mother? And so I told him she was in the kitchen. And when he walked in the kitchen, my mother actually screamed like he was, an intruder in the house. But she was just so excited to have him back. And it was a very, very special Christmas. And Santa couldn't have brought a bigger surprise than to have him there. He told us that he had to get real special permission, and he spent like 3 days getting across the country on trains, trying to get home, because when he got back, we thought, that he was still, someplace in the South Pacific at that time, not the South Pacific, around Pearl Harbor at that time. But he said that he was fortunate to get a flight and then to take trains to get back and surprise us. And I can still just remember every second of that big surprise. Now, I'm going to calm myself down here. All right, I'd like to talk now. The second question we were asked to think about
Did you need a minute?
Yeah, that would be good. Thank you. Let me compose myself
Yeah.
a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. The next question I'd like to talk about is our biggest regret in life. Well, my biggest regret is that I always wanted to see the world. I always wanted to travel. During my lifetime, there were opportunities when I was single and my children were grown. And I was hoping at that time to have an opportunity to do some traveling. And it occurred to me that I could certainly combine the traveling with my career, and that was the dream that started, that I wanted to join the Peace Corps. So I started doing some research about it, and because of my career being a draftsman, I worked a lot with engineers, and I worked with civil engineers and electrical engineers, and I could be of help working with field crews, because at that time all the drafting was done manually. We didn't have computers back in those days. And so I thought that was a skill that I could use and combine with the opportunity to maybe see some of the world and travel. So I'm starting to make plans, and my brother got wind of what I was thinking about. And for some reason, my brother decided maybe that I wasn't capable of doing this and being on my own and traveling. So he recruited my dad and told my dad about my plans, and my father was more upset because he didn't want me to be away for a couple of years. My dad was getting on in years. So my father called and told me, asked me. He didn't tell me. He never told me what to do. He made very strong suggestions and said, really, if I could postpone it for a while, that he would rather not have me leave the country. So I did. I put it on the back burner and continued working and doing jobs. At this time, I was living down in Florida. So it came a little later, and the time goes by, and it's getting close now to my retirement. So as I approached the age of 65 and looking forward to retirement, I thought a perfect retirement gift would be for me to make arrangements again to go into the Peace Corps. My dream was still very alive and very much something that was getting me through the bad times when work wasn't so easy, or relationships weren't so easy, and life wasn't so smooth with my health. And getting through all that, I'm pretty strong at the age of 65. I'm renewing my dream. So I get to the point where I'm living at that time in a little condo. I sell the condo that I'm in. I put all the things that were important to me in storage. I have my papers and applications in. I made a special trip up. I was living in Florida. I made a special trip here to Chicago to go to the Field Museum and to do some research of the area that I was interested in going to, which was the South Pacific. For some reason, that South Pacific was always calling to me. And so at this point, prepared, I'm almost packed and I'm ready to go to the training courses that were necessary. And unfortunately, fate had something else in store for me, and my health turned very bad. I had a little relapse of having a nervous breakdown. Unfortunately, in my life, I've had 3 nervous breakdowns, 2 of them very, very serious, but survived them and went on with my life, and my health was actually getting better. This last little breakdown that I had was a very short period of my health just collapsing. Unfortunately, I had a little silent heart attack at the time, and I had a little stroke at the time. Everything together, it was awful. Of course, with this happening with my health, my dream of the Peace Corps at that point was completely squashed. And that was it. The doctors would not give me any permission, which you needed. You had to have, that was one of the requirements to go into the Corps. You had to have your health in stable condition. So at the point where I knew my dream was over for the Peace Corps, I had some very good counseling. I got myself back on my feet, and then started to make new plans, and I'm now living temporarily with my brother. He's still located in Florida. So at that point, I looked around at senior housing because I didn't want to consider buying anything. So I went into a rental senior housing, and as my health got better and stronger, and I started looking at the possibilities, and had a wonderful epiphany. I had the solution come into my head, and that was to make my Peace Corps right in the community where I was living in West Palm Beach. And so I made a list, literally made a list of all the things I loved and all the opportunities of volunteer work, and with all these different things on the list, and one of them is I love working with children. So I signed up to work as a foster grandparent in the school. The schools there had a group of men and women that came in and worked with the slow students in the lowest grades to help them to catch up. And so that was one thing I did, and I did that 5 days a week, 4 hours in the morning. The next thing that I did was sign up for the Palm Beach Zoo to become a docent, and took all the classes and became eligible to work in their education department with the children. But here I'm adding the element of animals because I loved animals. And that was something I always enjoyed working with also. So I added that to my volunteer list. Next thing, I loved the theater and performing arts, and we have a wonderful theater in West Palm Beach called the Kravitz Center, and they had all the major shows. Every week they had a new show. So I volunteered there to be a ticket taker and usher, and worked with that program, and saw a new show every week and met lots of wonderful people there on that program. And next thing on my list was always there for many, many years, and that was I volunteered at the church. But now that I was a retired person and had more time, I was able to take some of the workshops and classes and work there as a volunteer. So that definitely was a solution of having my dream kind of squashed. I used that word squashed there before. That it was my way of doing my own Peace Corps, and it brought me a lot of happiness. And even though my dream was over, the regret of not doing it when I was younger was to please other people. And that was my family, that felt that they didn't want me to do that. But you can't go back and redo, you have to go on. Now we're down to our final question, and that is, I'll read the last one here. The message is what we have to give to younger people. Now, First of all, I brought something to read, because this is something that I definitely feel that young people, if the earlier they learn this and put this into action, I think the happier they're going to be in life. But let me start with the short one here first. Misfortune is an occasion to demonstrate character. And the reason I feel that this is so important to learn is because, as I just discussed, you have dreams in life, and sometimes those dreams do come true, but when they don't, you have to demonstrate somehow that it's not going to change your life in a way that is going to disappoint you the rest of your life. You have to, in some way, find in that misfortune an opportunity. We've all heard of the golden rule, and in front of me I've done a calligraphy sheet here with the golden rule for not just the Christianity, but for other faiths, and they all turn out to be the same message. But I'd like to read these. The first is our Christianity. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. The next is from the Baha'i faith. Blessed is he who preferreth his brother before himself. The next is from the Buddhist. Hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. The next is from Islam. No one of you is a believer until he desires for his brother that which he desires for himself. And the last is from the Judaism. What is hateful to you, do not to your fellow man. That is the entire law. All the rest is commentary. And the golden rule is certainly is something that, if we were all to live by, would certainly make the world a lot more golden for all of us. Thank you very much for listening to me today and my memories here, and wishing you all an adventuresome and happy and very healthy, long life. Thank you once again.
Thank you.